You guys know the routine by now. We're coming off another profitable event. Feels great to say that. We hit 2 out of our 3 plays for the big UFC 272 card. We got to brush upon that big Covington Masvidal beef that took place. And of course, you guys know I love recapping these profitable events. But other than that, we got to look forward to UFC Vegas 50. Magomed Ankalaev, a guy that I've been very high on for a long time. He's coming into this fight as a big-time favorite. There's some other interesting matchups that we're going to be brushing upon. You guys know the routine. Cue the music.
The teller, the teller, the teller.
It's another day. Left jab, right jab. This is MMA. Mixed martial arts, quick body parts, undefeated when I pick 'em. Who the champ, who the victim? Looking in my crystal ball, I predict the winner. Never stop fighting. If you lose, keep your chin up. Know how the game go. I'm a smart fella. Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller, the teller, the teller, the teller.
What is up, you guys? UFC Vegas 50. Magomed Ankalaev taking on Thiago Santos. 2 big-time light heavyweight fighters here throwing down. As I stated earlier, Ankalaev coming in as a big-time favorite here, over a 5-1 favorite, which is something that you really shouldn't be too surprised to see in regards to this fight and moving forward. Ankalaev is going to be a guy that's going to be a big-time favorite. You guys know I've been very high on him, a very complete fighter, and I'm very excited to see him perform this upcoming weekend. Now, if you guys could, first and foremost, please do hit that like button here on this video. If you guys are not subscribed to the channel already, please do. It means a lot to me. It helps me grow over here with my brand and my channel and everything I have going on. You guys can catch me over on my social media. Catch me on Instagram, MMA_fortuneteller_. Go give me a follow. I'm just about to hit that 7K mark. So just about 3K away from the number that I've been chasing for some time, trying to hit that 10K marker. And catch me over on Twitter at the MMA Teller. Thank you guys. Now, this fight card as a whole, not the most stacked of fight cards. I think I would rank it right around a C-. But at the same time, there's some exciting fights. Maybe I'm being a little bit critical. Of course, we have a big-time fight card coming to Jacksonville, April 9th, I believe it is. I mean, when you compare any fight card to that fight card, they're not going to look the best. But, you know, this fight card does have some solid fights on it, but I'm still going to stick with that C- ranking. Marlon Moraes taking on Yadong Song. That's another fight that's pretty cool there in the co-main event slot. Dober versus McKinney. Alex Pereira. You guys know about him now. This is the guy that knocked out Israel Adesanya, put him up flat over on the kickboxing scene. Now he's over in the MMA world. He has 5 professional fights. And he's coming off a spectacular knockout victory in his UFC debut against my boy, Andreas Michailidis. And Bruno Silva is not shy to knock people out either. So you got some fighters coming off Dana White's Contender Series, and AJ Fletcher, Javad Basharat, guys that are undefeated and performed very well on the show. So there's intriguing matchups here. And another undefeated guy that came off Dana White's Contender Series, Azamat Murzakanov. He had a spectacular knockout, so we'll be kicking things off with that fight. But you guys know the routine. We got to brush upon last week's fight card, UFC 272. I already mentioned it was a profitable one, so you guys know I'm excited to break down or recap this fight card here. We'll have timestamps all through. We'll have timestamps below, so you could jump to any point in time of the show. For those of you guys that are looking to stick it out throughout the whole thing with me, you guys know I like to say, recline your seat, relax. We're going to be chilling here, talking some UFC action, and we're going to jump right back to UFC 272 right now. So the first fight of UFC 272, I had action on it right from the get-go. Dustin Jacoby was taking on Michal Oliasejczak, 2 very talented light heavyweight fighters in my opinion. Now, neither of these fighters had their best performance this last Saturday. I was a little surprised to see how both of these men fought. Now, Dustin Jacoby, it came out that he had an injury that was not allowing him to throw his kicks, which is a major factor for Dustin Jacoby because you guys know he loves to throw his kicks. He's a complete kickboxer. and it definitely allowed this fight to play out a lot closer than it should have. Now, this was a 3-unit play for me here. Grabbed it at minus 190. I'll pull that ticket up for you guys real quick. And you guys know I've been very high on Dustin Jacoby, so I had to throw this play together. I was willing to take this anywhere from the minus 220, 230 range all the way down. I really like the fighter that Dustin Jacoby has evolved to be. Now, I had a lot of respect for Mihail Oliasechak as well. I love his boxing, but I just felt that Jacoby was going to be the more complete striker, and that was a ticket that I was willing to cash on. Now, again, this fight did play out closer than it should have. Jacoby drops the first round, then wins the next two. I very much feel that if he was not injured, his cardio would have been much better, and if he was throwing his kicks and whatnot, I really think that he would have ran away with this fight. So honestly, I'm not too down on myself for hitting this play here, because I think that Jacoby was just the better fighter, and that was a fight that you guys really should have all been on, although it played out a little bit awkwardly. Now in the next fight, Ludovic Klein takes out Devontae Smith, split decision victory. You know, that shouldn't have been the case. Ludovic Klein looked very good in this fight. He won pretty much every round, I do believe, and I don't know what that split was about. Devontae Smith seemed very hesitant in there. If he had a little bit more confidence in himself, I think that he could have actually made this fight play out a little bit closer. But the fight game's interesting. Ludovic Klein has not put out that much of impressive performances as of recently, and then all of a sudden he's looking to be the best version of himself, and he looked really good out there. So, you know, maybe he's just been getting back to the drawing board, working on his cardio, working on his takedown defense, as we saw that beautiful takedown that he stuffed. Interesting, especially when you look at his last two performances. It's interesting the way he performed, so we'll keep an eye on Klein. Tim Elliott gets the big underdog victory over Tager Ulanbekov. We all talked about it here. I warned you guys that Ulanbekov, this is a guy that has potential talent, but something's been a little off with him, and he hasn't been performing up to the standard of his betting odds. And all of his fights in the UFC came in as a big-time favorite, but all the fights play out closely. I tried to warn you guys. Hopefully you stayed away from this. I wanted nothing to do with this. I mean, I wasn't going to be targeting Elliott there, but I just wanted to sit back and watch how this fight played out. And Khabib was flipping out. Islam Makhachev just put a video out today. I mean, the Dagestani boys are very upset. They feel that Elliott kind of cheated in there. There was an illegal knee, and there was a point in time where Elliott grabbed the gloves and kind of threw a punch as he was holding the gloves. But you know what? Props to Elliott for being a dog in there. If Tagar didn't like that, he should have started doing some of those tactics back. You know, make it a dogfight. If the referee's letting your opponent get away with it, start to implement those types of things too, man. Make it a war. Win the fight. Prevail. And Tagar did not do that. Although he had a very dominant third round. It was a very close fight as well. But I thought Tim Elliott won those first two rounds. So Umar Nurmagomedov, takes out Brian Kelleher. I really could sit here and poke fun of the situation. You guys know I have a long history with Kelleher, and that's exactly what I'm going to do right now. I was very happy to see Kelleher get submitted in the first round there. You guys know how I feel about Kelleher. Kelleher. He stood me up for that MMA live discussion interview. He left the message as seen, and still just never responded like a dick there. So it was great to see him get a little taste of his own medicine there. Now, keep in mind, I talked about the fact that Kelleher had all these layup fights that he was winning, and then we talked about some of the bigger tests that he's had in the UFC. He's fought some decent talent throughout the years as well. Keep in mind, he's lost all those fights. Tell me who Kelleher is, who he's actually beat. He hasn't beat anybody. Anytime he steps in there with a really talented fighter, he loses. And Umar Nurmagomedov is a guy that's a guy, like I said, I'll attach my name to all day. And I'm not acting like I'm some savant or whatever, man. I mean, all of you guys know the deal. This guy is super talented. The kicks he was throwing, he's going to be such a complete fighter. I mean, there's no question that he fights for the belt one day. How about that? This was an amazing fight here. Marina Moraes takes out Maria Agapova. We knew there was a bitter rivalry going into this fight as well. We know the whole thing going on with Marina Moraes being fighting out of Ukraine, or now in South Florida, but being of Ukrainian descent. There was a lot of emotions going into this fight, and Moraes showed up in an amazing way. I wish I had some intel on this fight, because it came out that Moraes was dominating Agapova in the gym constantly when they were training together. I wish I would have been able to get a hold of that information. Unfortunately, I didn't. But a fight that I really wanted nothing to do with from a betting standpoint. If you guys remember what I said about this fight, the value was on Moraes. Okay, now I did pick Agapova. I was very surprised to see from that little beginning of of clinching and grappling exchanges, how quickly her arms and her all her muscles filled up with lactic acid and she kind of burnt out. You saw she couldn't even throw any punches in there. I was very, very surprised to see that. She's a little bit of a flaky fighter, man. She's an up and down type of fighter. So I don't know about her. I wouldn't trust her at all. Nick Negamorani, name's getting me here. Nick Negamariano, excuse me there, boys. Nick Negamariano takes out, how about this one? I got another one coming at you. Kennedy and Chekowu. I mean, these guys got some tricky names here. This was a very interesting fight. It ended up being a split decision victory for Nick. You guys know I picked Nick to win this fight, but there was that point deduction. But I think it wouldn't even have mattered if I remember correctly. The point deduction did not matter. The judges gave Nick the fight. So, and Nick was a dog in there, man. He was coming forward. He was really looking to brawl it out. Kennedy looked very good with his boxing too. He's definitely evolving as a fighter. He's getting clean in there with the strikes. And, we'll keep an eye on both those guys moving forward. Marina Rodriguez takes out, as I like to call her, Xanin Yan. I know that's not the right pronunciation. Excuse me there, guys. But this was a fight that I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on. Did you guys have Yan winning this fight or Marina Rodriguez? I kind of felt that Yan edged that fight. I thought she won those first 2 rounds, and Marina Rodriguez finished very strongly, but I think she lost those first 2 rounds. It was really close. Yan is a girl that even though she lost this fight, her stock goes up. She's training over there with Faber and Team Alpha Male. And I mean, she's becoming a very complete fighter. She was coming off a very disastrous performance against Carla Esparza. She's working on things. She's a nasty striker. She comes in phenomenal shape. These are 2 of the best strawweight fighters in the world, no question. And then we get to my biggest play of the night. Jalen Turner takes out Jamie Fulla Malarkey. This was an excellent fight. Jamie performed well. You guys know I said I had respect for Malarkey going into this fight as well. This was more of just praise that I had for Turner here. I really think that Turner is a guy that's hitting his stride right now. And anytime I see a -155 line next to him right now in a fight like this, I'm jumping all over it. Turner is becoming a complete fighter. His striking is phenomenal. His frame's ridiculous. He's a dangerous fighter. He's going to be finishing a lot of guys. And we were all over that. Grabbed it at -155. Like I said, great value there. And a great fight. Sergey Spivak takes out Greg Hardy, exploits the grappling of Greg Hardy. I'm very glad I stuck with that Sergey Spivak pick. I was wondering maybe if Greg Hardy would start to look a little better as he's putting more and more time in the gym. He's a giant frame. He's a freak athlete. But you can't catch up in the grappling department that quick against a guy like Sergey, who's been really working on that for years. So that's why I stuck with Spivak. Kevin Holland gets the victory over Cowboy Oliveira. You guys know I picked Oliveira here for a little bit of fun and no action or nothing like that. But, I wanted to stir some things up. And you know what? I still kind of stand behind what I said here. Kevin Holland, man, there's something up with this guy, right? He pretty much gets dominated in the first round. He lost that first round convincingly, got taken down, slammed around a little bit, was losing the striking exchanges, got tagged up, wobbled. But then you know the deal with Alex Cowboy Oliveira. He's a flake as well. He's very talented, but instead of coming out in the second round and closing the distance and working a couple takedown attempts, he has not one takedown attempt against a guy that he was just tossing around, and decides to continue to strike with a very dangerous striker in Holland, who had a crazy reach advantage and all that, and he got caught, and he deserved to get caught. That's how you want to fight. You want to fight like a clown. You're gonna lose like a clown there. He looked like one of his rodeo clowns. You know how he likes to ride bulls and stuff. He should maybe stop riding the bulls, and he should be one of the guys that dresses up like the clown and runs around trying to distract the bulls when they get a little crazy, because that was a bad performance by him in the second round, man. Bryce Mitchell, Thug Nasty takes out Edson Barbosa. This was a very interesting fight here because Bryce Mitchell dropped Barbosa in the first round and really just whooped him up. I had a little something to say on Twitter. I don't know if you guys agree with this or not, but I felt like Joe Rogan was being very disrespectful to Bryce Mitchell, not giving him any respect in that performance. He was making it seem like Barbosa wasn't trying to get up, and Barbosa, you got to wonder about the weight cut. When meanwhile Barbosa is 2-2 in the division and should have been 3-1. You guys all know that he did defeat Dan Ige. Barbosa's looked phenomenal in the featherweight division, and this was just more of a case of Thug Nasty, man. Thug Nasty's doing his thing. He's a complete fighter. Needs to work on his striking more and more, but when it comes to the grappling department, forget about it. I mean, he's literally Khabib best. I'm not saying he's as good as Khabib, but you guys know what I'm talking about. He has that X factor, man. This guy's a leech. This guy gets a hold of people and he just dominates down there, man. There's some real potential with this kid, and I don't know why Joe Rogan was just acting like it was all about Barboza, just not even trying. Okay, you know, when you got a guy like Bryce Mitchell putting that top pressure on you and he's not giving you any space, good luck getting up. You know, I was a little surprised to hear Joe talking like that. He should know better. I think he kind of has something against Bryce Mitchell, to be honest, too, if I'm being honest. I kind of noticed it a couple times. I think he's, I'm not going to get into all that, but I think he doesn't like a little something that Bryce Mitchell's kind of big into, and I don't know. Rafael Dos Anjos, this was my last play here. I had a play on Renato Moicano, my smallest play of the card. It was a 2.5 unit play. Grabbed it at nice and early at plus 165, but obviously this fight did not play out how I thought that it would have. Renato Moicano, maybe if he had a full camp, this would have been a little bit differently, or if he didn't take it short notice. But at the end of the day, as good as Rafael Dos Anjos performed, I got to say he wins this fight probably regardless, obviously, right? But it was weird, man. Moicano was very hesitant with his striking, and then when he let it go, he was landing some nice shots. It was very strange, and it was almost like he was a step behind every time when he went to do something. He was doing it like a second or two late, and normally he looks a little quicker in there. Something was up with him, but you got to give props to RDA because he looked phenomenal. And I'll tell you what, man, RDA might have, or he does have, one more run in him to try to grab that belt. And then we had the main event. Colby Covington dominates Jorge Masvidal. One of the judges gave it to Colby. I think it was 50. Was it 50-44? Not 50. Yeah, 50-44. Gave it through a 10-8 round in there. The pressure and the grappling of Colby's was just too much. Masvidal dropped him at one point in time, but didn't really follow up. He was so gassed. If you saw the end of the fight when they were even talking a little crap, Masvidal was wobbling on his legs, and that was just from being so fatigued. And then Colby's jumping up and down, laughing at him. I mean, you want to talk about cardio? I know you guys hear about it all the time from everyone that talks about Colby, but Colby's cardio is ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man. And this guy is truly, 1B as far as, 2B as far as, the best welterweight in the world. You got Khamzat, who's going to be making it known very soon. And then you got Kamaru Usman, obviously a step ahead of Colby. And then you got Colby, who's right there, man. And Colby obviously had two very, very closely contested matches with Kamaru. Colby's a beast. And I want to know your guys' thoughts on this, man. I was actually a fan of Colby's. I kind of changed my mind with that, man. I don't know. He kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'm not really into... I want to clarify something. I'm not into the whole talking about people's kids and their daughters. I think it's kind of weird. I'm not really with it. And I love all types of crap talking, all types of shit talking. If you want to talk about killing, taking people's heads off, decapitating them, throwing them in the Everglades for alligators to feast on. Nobody even, you know what I mean? So you could say all types of crazy stuff. I would love those types of talks, like Mike Tyson-esque. And I know Mike Tyson said, I'm going to eat your kids. It's very different when you're just saying it like generically as just a ruthless statement rather than talking about like the specific children of these fighters. It's kind of creepy to me, to be honest. And I don't like it. I don't like it, man. I kind of turned my back on Colby here. I was hoping Jorge was going to fix him. Obviously, I didn't think that was going to happen, but I hope Poirier gets him if they get a fight. And quite honestly, I don't expect that to happen either. Colby's just a beast, but he's just kind of a weird, cringy type dude. I like some of the things he says. He's funny. He's interesting. But some of the things that he says are cringy. They're just kind of weird. He comes off like an awkward type of dude. I guarantee you he doesn't have any good friends. That's the kind of guy he reminds me of, and I don't really like those types of people. I know he doesn't have like his childhood boys. He doesn't have a tight-knit crew. He doesn't have someone he can rely on. He's just a guy that lives for himself. He's just a weird type of dude, and I want to see him get laid out, to be quite honest. So that's surprising for me to even hear myself say that, because I was really enjoying watching him talk all this crap and been kind of a fan of his, but I turned the page on Colby there, so we'll see what's next for him. But again, a profitable event. We hit 2 out of our 3 plays, more units on the board, stringing off profitable card after profitable card after profitable card. We've been killing it. We're already up far in the green for 2022, and that's even coming off the very dominant 2021 year we had. I feel very, very proud of what I've been doing over here, and I feel great. You guys, everyone that works with me, you guys know what we're talking about here, and I feel very proud and I feel good about myself that I'm able to deliver the results that I've been delivering to you guys. So I want to say that real quick too. And now it's time to look forward, and let's take a look at UFC Vegas 50. So kicking the card off, we have 2 guys that fought on Dana White's Contender Series, and they both made a big splash. They both had knockout victories. Tafon and Chukui had that nasty head kick. Azamat Murzakanov had that nasty right hook clipped his opponent with a nasty right hook and really showcased his boxing. He's now 10-0. He's undefeated as a professional, and he's definitely more of a boxing, a striking-based fighter. But he does have some grappling in his back pocket. So if you didn't know that, now you know. This is a guy that has that sambo background, even though he doesn't always use it in his fights. Tafon Nchukwi is a guy that's more of a kickboxing-based fighter. I think that his grappling is definitely a step behind Azamat's. And keep in mind that Nchukwi is a guy that has bounced back and forth from the light heavyweight division and middleweight division, and has had more success in the light heavyweight division. So that's something definitely to note here. This is a light heavyweight fight. It seems that the weight cut was just not really working good for him. I know he was having some complaints about how things were going with his weight cut. Seems to be in good shape here. Now, the interesting fact here is that although he's a fighter that's fought at the middleweight division and is now fighting at the light heavyweight division, realistically, he's the larger fighter. I mean, he's 2 inches taller. He has a 6-inch reach advantage. He's the more larger man here. Azamat is a very interesting fighter for the division. Very much undersized, but he's a very stout guy as well, though. He's a thick dude, but he has the skills, man. I truly believe this guy has some legit skills. And Azamat, like I said, his boxing is just, it's very crisp. The footwork is really what gets you there. He knows how to close the distance. Like I said, he's undersized. He's going to have a reach disadvantage in almost all of his fights in this division here. But you got to pay attention to the feet. He's constantly moving. He's always on the balls of his feet, and he knows how to close the distance very, very well. And he knows where to place his shots, and he has some serious power. There's no question about it. This guy has legit power. When he touches guys, they get put out. If you run the tape back in all his fights, this guy just been putting guys out left and right. Now, if you go online, you can pull up some sambo matches of him. I mean, he's been in there with some legit sambo guys, Ian Kutilaba, and so you can kind of gauge where his grappling's at. He did perform very well in that competition there. So you have to, in my opinion, you have to give the edge in the grappling department to Azamat in a solid way there. We saw Tafon Nchukwi really struggle in the grappling department against Jun Young Park. Okay, so you keep that in mind as well. Now, as far as from a positive standpoint from Nchukwi, if you get him at dog odds, like I said, he's coming into this fight with a 6-inch reach advantage. He has a very large frame, and he has some serious power as well. He has nice kicks. He's a solid striker, and it looks like he had a solid fight camp going into this fight here. So you keep that in mind as well. And obviously, Nchukwi is no joke. I mean, if you saw his knockout victory in Dana White's Contender Series, I mean, this is a guy that is just, he's not one to be messed with. And you can't say that this guy can't touch anybody and put them out. So, this is a fun fight. This is a great way to kick the card off. Azamat right now, there's been a little bit of money coming in on Azamat. Opened right around a -130. He's really settling right now, right around the -170, -165 range. So you keep that in mind, and Tafon Nchukwi is becoming more and more of a dog. So if you like Tafon, you wait a little bit longer, you're probably going to get a better and better line on him. I like Azamat Murzakanov to win this fight. I think that he's going to win the striking exchanges, and he's more likely to get a knockout victory if they stay on the feet anyway. And then I think the X factor is if he wants to really showcase his overall skill set. He starts to work in some sambo type grappling and gets a takedown, works some ground and pound. He has pinpoint accuracy with the ground and pound as well. I like Azamat Murzakanov to win the fight. We got Guido Canetti taking on Chris Montinho. This is a fight here where, if I'm being quite honest, I do not believe either of these fighters should be fighting in the UFC. If I'm being really honest, breaking down tape on these guys, Chris took that fight on short notice against Sean O'Malley. That's the only reason why he was able to get that opportunity in the UFC, in my opinion. And obviously the UFC is rewarding him right now, giving him a fight against Guido Canetti for taking that fight on short notice, for Sean, giving Sean O'Malley that opportunity just to tee off on him and beat the crap out of him for 15 minutes, taking years off his life, rattling his brain around for 15 minutes straight. But you know what? I got to give props to Chris as well, because Chris did step in on short notice, and he showed that he was tough as hell. For him not to get finished in that fight, that really said something. The guy's very durable. I do think that he's going to be able to to handle anything that Guido Canetti throws his way, as far as from not being hurt too bad or being finished. I mean, if he was able to take those shots from Sean O'Malley, I don't see any reason why he would have a problem with Guido Canetti shots. Guido is a guy that's 42 years old now. We know he's put in work with Team Alpha Male in the past. Guido's a guy that's pretty quick, a decent athlete. But you got to wonder, I mean, about the age. The age is definitely a factor here. And, overall, when I break these guys down on tape, I think that Guido Canetti actually has some more impressive performances than I could pull up on Chris. There's really nothing that's that impressive that you could pull up on Chris, in my opinion. And at least Guido, although he's had a rough road as of recently, really throughout his career, he's 8-6, but he's had some performances that you could actually decently respect, right? Going to a split decision with Mana Martinez. Mana, he's shown that he's a tough customer. You saw in his last fight, he almost came back in the third round. Was hanging with Marlon Chito Vera for a little bit before being finished. Did get knocked out by Bada Garel. That was not his best performance, and the defense was lacking there. But again, I don't know. The same way I said, I don't think that Guido's going to finish Chris. I don't really feel that Chris has showcased anything that's that dangerous on the feet that I think that he's going to finish Guido. I kind of feel that this is going to be a fight that goes to a decision. And you know what? I mean, I'll side with the dog here more so. Guido Canetti, a guy that has actually been in the octagon more than once, and a guy that has decent leg kicks. He's kind of quick in there. I could see him getting the better of the striking exchanges against Chris Montinho. Again, Chris Montinho looked like a walking zombie in that Sean O'Malley fight. And even if you pull up some of his earlier fights, on the regional scene, there was really nothing impressive going on in any of those fights. He'll have a little bit of a size advantage. He has the youth advantage. I mean, I think that's what he has going for him there. An inch height advantage, 2-inch reach advantage. It's not enough for me to pick him, though. I'll pick Guido Canetti to win the fight. And I'm sorry, real quick, we'll pull up the live line on this. If you guys can see this, I got to get this thing out of the way over here. Excuse me here. But, right now we have a line on this fight at Montinho at a -145 to a -150, with Canetti right around a +125, which to me is a little interesting. So, I saw some interviews with Montinho. I know that he said that he made a lot of money, or for him, he made a lot of money in that last fight. He was able to quit his job. He's training full time. I think people are kind of banking on that. I saw that interview with him, and he's a guy that's very mentally tough. But we'll see how things go. I kind of want him to win, but I'm gonna pick Guido in a fight like that where he's the dog, when I think that at the very least that the line should be more towards even. We'll see how that fight plays out. Cody Brundage taking on Dalcha Langiambula, El Champion. Cody Brundage, right? Cody Brundage, we'll start with him real quick. Cody, a guy that has a wrestling background. He had an opportunity on Dana White's Contender Series, was looking very good in the first couple exchanges in that fight with William Knight. Got a takedown, flattened him out from behind and everything. And William Knight worked his way right back up to his feet and then dropped some nasty elbows. You want to run the tape back on that fight. You want to talk about strikes to the back of the head. And again, not that it necessarily made a difference, because I still think you shouldn't be putting yourself in that situation. But you want to talk about strikes to the back of the head, man. That was about as brutal of elbows right to the back of the head, not on the edge. You guys know they call, you work the mohawk, right? It wasn't over here in the sides. It was straight in the back of the mohawk, right there in the back of the head. And William Knight just drops down elbows until he puts him out. And Herb Dean is sitting there looking right at it. And that's your boy, Herb Dean. All you guys talk about him being one of the best referees. I think that Herb Dean is one of the worst referees in all of the UFC. So I know that's going to ruffle a few of your guys' feathers, but I don't really care. I've been saying that for a long time. I don't remember any other referee that constantly has issues like that. I see issues when I'm breaking down tape. All I do is watch tape, rewatch fights, watch them live. I don't know any other referee. Of course, we could talk about like the Steve Mazzagattis and weird fight referees like that, but I'm talking about out of the top referees, Herb Dean is the worst out of all of them. So I just want to touch upon that real quick. But Cody Brundage drops that fight. And he bounced back with a big victory over on the LFA scene, got that arm triangle choke, and then he takes on Nick Maximov, and he goes to a decision with Nick Maximov, gets out grappled there, just by the better overall grappler. And Cody, a guy that is going to be coming into this fight, he's going to be the bigger guy as far as from a height standpoint. He's a taller guy, but actually will have a 4-inch reach disadvantage. If Cody's going to win this fight, I think that he really has to have some success with his wrestling. Like I said, he has that collegiate wrestling background. I think he wrestled at Maryland. I might be wrong on that, but there was some tape on him on YouTube Wrestling and whatnot. We're not talking about a cream of the crop type of wrestler, but a guy that does have that in his back pocket. And the striking is whatever. He's going to have to be able to push the pace in this fight and use his wrestling and try to pull off something similar to what Marc-Andre Belleroute just did, which was really just push the pace and push Dalcha back against the cage. If you pressure Dalcha, he will keep his back against the cage and he'll look for counter shots and he'll lose decisions like that. But you know what? Dalcha is a dangerous fighter as well. I was very impressed with his performance over Dequan Townsend, lower level opponent, but still, Dalcha looked very good in that fight. I believe that was his debut, and he's a powerful fighter. His Magomed Ankalaev fight where he ended up getting knocked out, he stuffed some takedowns against Magomed. You guys know I'm very high on Magomed, so I don't see why he couldn't stuff some takedowns on Cody and get the better of the striking exchanges here. I kind of wanted to pick Cody, but at the end of the day, I got to side with Dalcha here. Dalcha had a victory over Marcus Perez. Cody really just hasn't shown me nothing for me to pick him in the spot here, although I do see that potential avenue for victory. And then again, the X factor is Dalcha is just a phenomenal athlete, and he's putting in work over at Sanford MMA. So you guys know that means a lot to me, man. He's brushing shoulders with some of the best guys in the world. And after he loses to Marc-Andre Belleroute, he goes and starts training with him. That's the mentality of a champion, hence the nickname. I love moves like that, and I expect him to go out there and get the job done. I got to side with him there. We'll take a look at the live line. Dalcha right now, right around a -120. With the comeback on Cody, right around even odds. This is a fight that's really almost it's a pick 'em basically. So I like Dalcha there. If you guys are looking for a new sports book, I highly recommend Bovada.lv. Reach out to me if you're interested. I'll send you over my referral link. If you sign up through my link, let me give you my email address to get that referral. I'm giving you guys an entire weekend of bets for free. I'm talking about sports betting weekly picks, all my MMA picks. I'll make it a nice profitable weekend for you guys. And Bovada.lv, in my opinion, is the best sports book out there. Great payouts. Everything is so transparent. They're very communicative. And it's just, they're really good in my opinion. So I highly recommend them. I don't work for them or nothing like that, as some of you guys have speculated before. It's just my honest and true opinion. I work on them. I make money off Bovada.lv. I have an account with them. I admire their setup. I like how everything is. But I do not work for them. And if you're looking for a new sports book, I recommend you check out Bovada.lv. Shoot me a message. Sabina Mazo taking on Miranda Maverick. Both these girls coming off 2 losses, which is somewhat interesting to say because both of these girls had a lot of hype and a lot of momentum behind them before those 2 losses, right? They were on some solid win streaks. Both of these girls' records almost identical, 9-4 and 9-3. A little bit of different types of fighters. Maza more of the striking type of fighter, where Miranda Maverick can strike, but she's very physically strong. She could kind of do it all, and she was a girl that was really hyped up for a while there. And then she lost to Macy Barber. A lot of people thought that she probably should have won that fight. It was very close. She faded in the later rounds, and then she got dominated by Erin Blanchfield. But I think that we're all starting to catch on to Erin Blanchfield. I think she might be a really, really talented fighter. So it's kind of tricky when you look at those 2 fights. And then you got Sabina Mazo, who just got destroyed by Maria Agapova in the 3rd round with that nasty power shot that dropped Mazo, and then she got choked out. But she was losing that fight. Mazo showed to be a tough girl in that fight, though. She was constantly walking forward, but I'm kind of not as high in her as her. I'm not as high in her striking as I once was. It's not really growing as much as I thought it would. I mean, she's still only 24, but I thought that we would start to see more and more strides. It's a little labored at times. It's decently technical, but it's not the most. It's just not the most impressive. It doesn't really overpower her opponents. It doesn't overwhelm her opponents, but she has decent technique. We know she put in time at King's MMA. I believe she's not training there anymore, last I heard. She'll have a 4-inch reach advantage in this fight. She's 4 inches taller, so she has that length here. If she's able to implement her striking from the outside, it could work for her. There's a recipe for her here. But you know what? I think that Miranda Maverick will have that strength advantage. She'll push her up against the cage. She'll win those clinch exchanges. I could see her sneaking in a takedown or 2. We saw Alexis Davis dominate Sabina Mazo. Not really sure if Miranda Maverick is on Alexis Davis's level with the grappling. I'm not really sure about that right now. I'm kind of pumping the brakes a little bit on Miranda. She needs to come out here and show me something. I'll definitely pick her to win this fight. I have her winning this fight, but I'm pumping the brakes with her in the sense that I was one of the people that was high on her, and I'm not as high on her right now. I love the physical abilities she brings in the cage, but she needs to have her cardio down, and she needs to continue to work on some things with her technique, her overall technique. From a technical standpoint, is basically what I'm saying. She has decent power. So I will pick her to win the fight. I think that, like I said, she'll kind of overpower Mazo. I can see her doing some stuff on the floor. I can see her doing some work on the floor. And I really don't think that Mazo's going to land a power shot and get a finish like we've seen her do before against fighters that were not really on the level of a Maverick. Maverick right now is a -350 up to the -400 range. She's a big-time favorite. You got to be a little bit careful there. You guys know how I feel about these types of fights. Be careful. But there's definitely an avenue for Miranda Maverick to go out here and kind of bully Mazo around too. I do believe that. I like Miranda Maverick to win the fight there. Damon the Leech Jackson taking on Kamuela Kirk. This is an interesting fight. Damon Jackson, a guy that spent a lot of time over in PFL, a guy that was waiting, licking his chops to get into the octagon. He finally got that opportunity, and he showed up in a major way, took out Murzakanov, and really looked good in the later rounds. His cardio was very much up to par. His grappling is his strong suit for sure. He's a legit grappler. Lost his next fight to Ilia Topuria, but Topuria is a guy that we don't know how good Ilia Topuria is going to be. He has a lot of potential. I mean, he might be, towards the tippy top of the division. I'm talking about fighting for the belt and all that. He has all that type of potential. So, let's not put Jackson under the fire too much there. He did bounce back with the victory over Charles Rosa. And now he takes on Kamuela Kirk, who's on a 3-fight winning streak. Kirk is a solid striker. He's a guy that 3 fights in a row over on the LFA, or two of them in the LFA scene, and then that last fight against Makwan Americani. Now, when you break down tape in that Americani fight, one thing I noticed is that Americani was getting a lot of takedowns in that fight. Americani's a good grappler, good submission artist and whatnot. So he wasn't able to sub Kirk, but he had substantial time, on top position in Kirk. And you know what? I feel that Damon Jackson will have that avenue to get this fight down to the mat. I think that Jackson could do that. Maybe he pulls off a sub, but maybe he just scores some points, reigns some ground and pound and dominates down there for a little bit. On the feet, I do favor Kamuela Kirk. I think he's the better striker. And I think that he has more potential at this point in time. He's 27 years old. We may see more and more strides in his game. We should. And whereas Damon Jackson, in my opinion, I do feel that the book is pretty much written on Damon Jackson. We kind of know who he is as a fighter. He's a good fighter. He's a good fighter. And like I said, he has some solid grappling, and there's an avenue there for him to go out and get some takedowns and do some work there. So you see him hitting the pads here, and I don't want to say I don't think he could hang on the feet with Kamuela Kirk. I mean, he's tough. He could throw down with him a little bit, but Kamuela Kirk is just a more polished boxer, a more polished striker overall, and I really favor Kirk getting the better of those exchanges. So it will be very important that Jackson gets this fight down to the mat at one point in time. I feel pretty confident in that, and I think he could do that. And comes in phenomenal shape. And we'll take a look at the live line here. Damon Jackson right now a slight underdog. It's basically a pick'em fight right here. Kamuela Kirk -115 to come back on Jackson -105. I'll take Damon Jackson there to win the fight. And again, the X factor here. Let's see if Jackson can get him down to the mat and do some work down there. Trevin 5-star Jones taking on Javad Basharat, the Afghanistan fighter. I guess he's an American nowadays, but I'm not sure. I forget if he was born out there, but he represents Afghanistan. I guess maybe he was born there. Now, if you guys remember, very unfortunate situation, man. He fought on Dana White's Contender Series. Interestingly enough, he was fighting an Israeli fighter, and he had the nerve to call him a terrorist. And it was messed up, man, because when you saw how that all played out, not that it's really ever okay, but, you know, when you really started to see the whole situation, this guy Javid was a class act. This guy is just a great guy. The way he handled himself, I mean, if I was him, I would have been way more ruthless in there, man. After I got that victory, the way he dominated him, I would have been giving him noogies, slapping him all up in the back of the head. I would have been way more ruthless in there. You know, Javid handled it like a class act, I guess, as people would say. And anyways, you know, it was a very dominating and very impressive performance. Trevin Jones is a guy that I'm decently high on. Carries some serious power on the feet. He's a solid fighter here. I've always had a great deal of respect for 5-star Jones. See if we got a tag over here. But you know, Jones is he's a very dangerous fighter. I mean, I think without a doubt his most impressive performance was the fight where he was being dominated by Timur Valiev for almost 2.5 rounds or so, and then ended up clipping him and finishing him there. So showcasing his power, knocking out Mario Batista after that. Batista's been looking very good. Those are 2 big victories. And again, that's a victory that was overturned to a no contest or no decision based on a marijuana failed test or something like that, or some type of fugazi type thing like that. And then he lost in his last fight to Sadykhab Kakhramonov. I think Kakhramonov is a very, very underrated fighter that we're all going to start to learn about. And Trevin Jones looked good in that fight, but he ended up kind of getting tired a little bit, and he got caught in a sub, and it is what it is. Now, the only thing that's bad about that is Javid has very similar capabilities. So Trevin Jones has to sharpen some things up in his arsenal. He's 31 years old, cruising right into the prime of his career. Javid only 26. We're going to see strides and strides from his game. As far as from a frame standpoint, these guys are very similar. Nothing really going on here too much. I like Javid Basharat. I really do like him. The performance that he put on in that show, and you break down tape on him, this guy is he says it right here, 100% finish rate. I mean, this guy, he's 11-0, and he's a very solid grappler. This guy's grappling is very, very much up to par, and I think that will probably be the X factor. He can hang with fighters in the feet as well, but I definitely side with Trevin there. If they're going to sit there and strike the entire time, I'm going to favor Trevin. But you guys know the deal. This isn't an MMA fight. This isn't just a kickboxing or boxing bout. So Javid's going to be closing the distance. He's going to be grabbing a hold of Trevin at some point in time in this fight. We take a look at the betting line here, and we got Javid Basharat right around a -145 up to that -160 range, with some money coming in on him on some of these books. So people breaking down tape on that last fight, looking at some of his older fights and realizing he's a fighter that has a lot of potential. But be careful, because Trevin Jones has that KO power. I would probably still favor taking Javid even at this type of line rather than taking the shot on Jones probably. You probably want it more towards that -145 range. Be careful if it's getting too high on you. Like I said, because Jones can hurt anybody on the feet. I really love this matchup right here. JJ Aldrich taking on Jillian Robertson. JJ Aldrich is a girl that I've been very high on for some time. I've had some tit for tat type conversations with some of you guys on IG, saying that I'm hyping up JJ. She's really not that good. I think even here on YouTube in the comment section, I've been impressed with JJ. I really like her boxing. I think she gives a lot of girls problems in this division with her boxing. She's very technical. She fights out of that southpaw stance at times and whatnot. I believe she actually is a full southpaw striker. I'm trying to remember if she switches stances a little bit, but she's nasty. She's nasty with her boxing. She's had some performances that were not necessarily the best, but if you really break them down, like for example, the Macy Barber fight, she was dominating that fight. She was looking very, very good in that fight before she got caught. I think that was in the 3rd round or late 2nd round, and she got caught, and it didn't look good the way she got overwhelmed and she got finished there. But you know what? Bounced back with a solid victory over Lauren Mueller, and then she lost to Sabina Mazo. That fight's not looking the best for her right now. As I said, Mazo's stock has dropped. And then she took out Courtney Casey. Now Courtney Casey is a very underrated striker as well. A very underrated fighter, in my opinion. She's nasty with her striking. It's a big victory. Defeated Vanessa Demopoulos. Demopoulos had that big victory there. But you can run the tape back way further than just these last 5 fights in Aldrich. She's been around. She's 29 years old. Again, I'm going to say it again. Cruising into the prime of her career. putting in work with some of the best of them over at Elevation Fight Team. And I really just feel that this girl has a lot of potential. If she just continues to work on her takedown defense, keeping the fight on the feet, she's gonna box the ears off a lot of these fighters. And she's been putting in a lot of work with Raquel Pennington. You could expect her cardio always to be up to par. And then we got Jillian Robertson. The reason why I'm so interested in this fight is because I'm very high on Jillian Robertson as well. Jillian Robertson, a very, very above average grappler for the division. This girl gives a lot of fighters problems down there. She is a long time American Top Team product since she's been very young. She still is young. She's only 26 years old. She's by far nowhere near a finished product. So even more so than JJ. So that's the interesting there. Coming off a rear naked choke victory over Priscilla Cachoeira. She dropped 2 fights before that to Miranda Maverick and Taylor Santos. 2 big-time fighters. Victories over Poliano Batello, Courtney Casey. But again, if you run back her career throughout the years, she's been pulling off subs from a long time back. Subs over Molly McCann when Molly McCann made her debut. A lot of fights like that. So now these girls' heights are identical, 5'5". JJ Aldrich is going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage to go along with the edge on the feet with her striking as well, which is going to lead me to my pick, JJ Aldrich. I think that she should be able to keep this fight on the feet, and she'll have the edge there. Again, Jillian Robertson's going to be looking to close the distance, try to get her down to the mat where she can try to pull something off there. This is a good fight. I'm excited for this fight. I actually really like this fight. And again, my pick is JJ Aldrich to win the fight, and she's a slight dog right now, right around a plus 115 to come back on Jillian Robertson at minus 135. So people kind of favoring the grappler here. They think that she can get some takedowns, or like I said, we've seen JJ freeze up a little bit. We've seen her get startled and hurt a little bit in some of her fights. So maybe Jillian can try to throw something at her that kind of just throws her off her feet, and she kind of gets a little erratic in there. But my pick's JJ Aldrich. Matthew Semelsberger taking on AJ Fletcher. AJ Fletcher, man, the Ghost, had a spectacular performance on Dana White's Contender Series. He had that nasty flying knee knockout. It was really something to watch. If you guys didn't see that, you run the tape back on that. A quick victory. This guy's very explosive. He has some solid wrestling. He makes his UFC debut here against a guy that's pretty much an underrated fighter, in my opinion. This is a tough fight for him here, man, because Semelsberger has very, very crisp striking. He's a nasty boxer. And really the thing that stood out to me when I saw that this fight was matched up was the fact that Semelsberger is going to have a 8-inch reach advantage to go along with the better striking, in my opinion. AJ Fletcher, maybe a little bit more explosive from an athletic standpoint. Maybe he could try to get some takedowns and do something wild in there. Take a look at some of his recent fights, pulling off submissions one after another, but against very low level talent. That's something that I definitely noticed. I don't know if he's able to get Matthew down to the mat and really is able to threaten him with the submission there. I think that Semelsberger is a very composed fighter, and he's a true athlete. We're talking about a college football player. I forget what school he played for, but he's a real deal, man. He's a real deal athlete. I believe he was a safety, and this guy could hit. You saw him crack in KS Williams there. Unfortunately for him, that fight did not go his way, but bounced back right after that. You see him putting in work with Tim Means, a legend in the game. As far as I'm concerned, Tim Means is a legend. I'm a giant Tim Means fan. So I basically already cut to the chase. I mean, the main factor that I see giving Matthew Semelsberger a major edge in this fight is that 8-inch reach advantage and being the better striker. AJ is going to throw some wild stuff at him. I think that he's decently live for where the odds are. When you take a look at the odds here, there's some decent value on Fletcher at 2-1 odds. Maybe he shows up and he's a guy that really puts it all out there. So don't be shocked if he pulls off something from a finishing standpoint as well. He goes out there and he throws those types of moves, those Hail Mary moves out there, and he gets away with it a lot. But real quick, I mean, he's 9-0 You take a look at the level of opponents that he was fighting even before that Dana White's Contender Series fight. I mean, we're talking about fighters with losing records, and the 2 fights before that, 500 records, losing records. So, I mean, that's the issue there for me. You run it back to his amateur fights, 2 losses there. I just feel like Semelsberger is a guy that's really starting to cement his feet in the UFC. He's starting to really settle in as a legit fighter in the division. So I got Semelsberger to win the fight, and his line's gonna be right around a -250. So he's a big time favorite there. Bruno Silva taking on Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira, one of the instantly as soon as he became a full MMA participant, because he has had MMA fights years ago. So I mean, technically he's been involved in MMA, but realistically, he took those fights and he went straight back to the kickboxing scene. But he's back now, and he's instantly one of the top strikers in all of MMA. There's no question about it. He makes his UFC debut and lands a spectacular flying switch knee. He fakes the right, he flips up the left, finishes my boy Andreas Michailidis. That was tough for me to watch, especially when Michailidis won the first round, but really was just kind of holding him against the cage, trying to take him down. I mean, he really wasn't doing anything there, but I think it's obvious the recipe to beat Pereira is you got to be up to par with your wrestling and your grappling and take him down and exploit him down there. I think if you're going to try to stand and strike with Pereira, I think that you're going to have a rough night. I think there's a big chance you're going to lose. I'm talking about anybody in the division. Again, this guy has a nasty knockout victory over Israel Adesanya in the kickboxing scene. But besides that, this guy's been fighting on the kickboxing scene, putting in work for years. Working guys, getting all types of nasty finishes. His frame, you want to talk about his frame? And real quick before we talk about his frame, we'll go back to how they match up from a physical standpoint, from their stature and whatnot. Putting in work over here with Glover Teixeira, the light heavyweight champion of the world. Talk about wisdom there, man. That's big time. That's big time for Pereira's career there. And now we'll run it back to how these guys match up. Look at Pereira here. He has a 6-inch reach advantage. He's 4 inches taller. He has a freaky frame. He's definitely continuously working on the takedown defense and the get-up game, because if he gets back up to the feet or if he stuffs the takedowns, he's working almost maybe anybody in the MMA world right now. Well, we'll see how that plays out. Hopefully he gets that opportunity. It might be tough for him, though. I'm not sure if his takedown defense and grappling is going to be able to catch up quick enough. He's 34 years old, 34 and a half, so doesn't have a lot of time really to really get up to the level to be stuffing takedowns, from some of the bigger wrestlers in the division. So, Bruno Silva, let's talk about him here for a second. Bruno Silva, this guy, all he does is finish his fights, man. This guy's always looking for the finish, just knocking dudes out left and right. Just recently knocked out Jordan Wright, Andrew Sanchez, Wellington Turman, Artem Frolov, and how about Alexander Shlemenko? If you guys don't know Shlemenko, man, one of the real true OGs in the game, the former Bellator champion. He's actually the head coach of Andrei Korshkov. You guys know I just bumped into him, one of my favorite fighters. Team Shlemenko, those guys are killers. But Bruno Silva just has a knack for knocking guys out. But the issue here is Bruno Silva is a very confident guy in his striking and just in going to war. I have a weird feeling that he's going to try to brawl it out a little bit with Pereira. I don't see Silva being the guy that just goes in for a game plan where he's just going for takedowns and trying to control him there. Even if he gets him down, I think he goes for some wild attacks, gives Pereira opportunities to get back up to his feet. And I have this weird feeling that there's going to be ample time for Pereira to land a big shot on Bruno. I have this feeling. That's my gut feeling. And now here's the X factor. Like I said, Bruno not only does he have that opportunity here to get a takedown and control Pereira, win the fight like that if he could use some fighter IQ and stick to a game plan, but you can't doubt the fact that he could knock anybody out as well. Yes, he can knock out Alex Pereira in this fight. I mean, he's a knockout artist. He knows what he's doing. And when it comes to the MMA world, really Pereira's in his world here. We're talking about 28 professional fights compared to 5. Let's not underestimate that. That all being said, kind of going against my initial gut, I'll be honest with you guys, my initial gut was to take Bruno Silva. I like the dog value on him here. I think that maybe there's slightly more value there, but I'm not even sure about that because I'm picking Alex Pereira to win, and I have this weird feeling he gets another knockout. I think that we see him look even a better version of himself than from his last fight. He's just going to be putting more work and, like I said, into the grappling department, the take that stuff in the takedowns and all that. He looks better and better. He has a freak frame. He's a freak athlete. I got to pick Alex Pereira to win the fight here. Right now, he's creeping up to that -190 range. This is a very interesting fight. So, again, when I talk about this card being a little bit of a strange one, there's some fights that are interesting here. This is one of those fights I can't wait to watch. And I would love to see Pereira work his way to the top of the division and get a fight with Izzy. I just don't know if that's ever really realistically going to happen. We'll see. Drew Dober taking on Terrence McKinney. Now, McKinney just fought. As I'm recording this, he just fought like 8-9 days ago. But up until the point he steps down in the octagon, we're talking about a 2-week break between fights. Now, keep in mind, this fight was announced a decent amount of time ago. It's been at least, a nice 4 or 5 days. I mean, he knew he was taking this fight within days after that last fight. I'm hoping that he stayed in good shape. You know, we talked about the Moicano situation, how that all went for Moicano. I have a feeling that this is a little bit of a different type of fight, though. I don't know. My gut tells me that McKinney was staying ready. And we'll talk about that Zaim performance. I mean, he went out there and he steamrolled Zaim. And I want to talk about that real quick. That was very, very impressive to me for a couple reasons here. First off, the fact that he had a game plan going into that fight, and there's no question about it. When the bell rung, he stormed across the cage, and he was looking to exploit Zaim's takedown defense and grappling. Of course, Zaim, a very talented striker. Now, the second reason why it impressed me a lot is if you break down tape on Zaim, especially as of recently, he's definitely working on his grappling. He's been pulling off some moves down there, and he's decently impressed me. I actually have Zaim on my radar to be a pretty solid fighter moving forward, and McKinney went out there and just outclassed him. So, you know, there was these stories about his wrestling and whatnot, and him being a very complete fighter. But when you broke down tape on him before that fight, in my opinion, there was nothing that was that impressive as far as on tape from his wrestling. I mean, there was a couple fights where he did some ground and pound and whatnot. That one, without a doubt, showed that his grappling is legit. I was very, very impressed. Of course, there's the X factor of him just going out and starching guys left and right as well. And now we talk about Drew Dober. I mean, Drew Dober, a guy that I'm very high on, one of the nastiest strikers in the division without a doubt. He's been around forever. And a guy that can knock anybody out. There's no question about that. We're talking about a very, very skilled Muay Thai fighter here, an ex-Muay Thai champion. That's his base. And when you look at how these guys match up, you do need to keep in mind that McKinney is a guy, you know, he got starched on Dana White's Contender Series with that flying knee. Derek Minner pulled off a nasty choke on him. So maybe you want to keep an eye on that as well. But I'm not sure if McKinney gets a takedown. I'm not so sure that we see Dober pulling anything off like that, besides the fact that McKinney has evolved so much in the last, 3 years or so as well. Now he's on a 5-fight win streak. I do believe that McKinney just has a couple more avenues here, but it's weird, though. It's weird because I look at this 2 different ways. McKinney has the potential to knock Dober out as well. There's no way you can say that he doesn't, because I mean, the power has shown to be there. He's knocked out guys left and right for years. I edge McKinney from a wrestling standpoint, especially early. But here's another X factor that we got to talk about. Terrence McKinney, his fights don't really go that far at all. I mean, you take a look right now. We're talking about first round, second round with the loss there. First round. He had one fight that hit the third round. He pulled off a heel hook there against Brandon Todd. I mean, the guy has 2 first names. His last name is a first name, so you take that for what it is. And then first round. So if you guys catch my drift, I mean, we don't know how McKinney's going to perform in the later rounds. Whereas Dober, we've seen him go to wars in the later rounds. Now, I will say this as well, though. Dober, you know, he lost some steam in that Brad Riddell fight the longer that fight went on. But that fight, that was a crazy pace. And you guys know I'm very high in Brad Riddell. Islam Makhachev was able to choke him out there in the third round. Islam has just been dominating. So that's a weird one, however you want to look at that, too. It's hard to gauge that. Can McKinney go out here, get a takedown, do something like that? This is a very, very interesting fight. Now, we'll take a look at the betting line real quick before I give you guys my official pick. We have Drew Dober right around a minus 185 up to a minus 210 favorite, 2-1 odds on him. With McKinney right around that plus 150 up to a plus 165 as an underdog. So people respecting Dober and his striking abilities. And again, if he lands a big shot, he could definitely knock out McKinney. He's a very talented athlete. I'm going to pick Terrence McKinney to win the fight, though. I think that I kind of like the little X factors and certain avenues that McKinney has. If he could use that wrestling, I have a feeling that he will hold up in the later rounds if it goes there. I have a feeling that he comes in good shape. And then on the feet, he can knock out Dober as well. We'll see how that takes place in the feet. But I'll take Terrence McKinney to win the fight. Khalil Rountree taking on Carl Robertson. Both these guys, two fighters again that almost have identical records, 9-5 and 9-4. A fight taking place in the light heavyweight division. We know Robertson has spent some time down at the middleweight division, was having issues making weight. We've seen him fight in the light heavyweight division as well. Actually went to stepped in there with Glover Teixeira. He got submitted there. Was really outclassed in that fight. And then had 2 victories in a row. Took out Wellington Turman via split decision. Took out Roman Kopylov via rear naked choke. Then lost 2 fights in a row to Marvin Vettori and Brandon Allen. He was submitted in both of those. I really am not that high on Carl Robertson, to be quite honest. Again, that the Marvin Vettori was a major play of mine, an official play that came through. Carl Robertson, decent striking. The fight against Kopylov, that was pretty impressive. I believe that was in Russia as well, or it was somewhere over towards that side of the world, and he showed up and he pulled off the rear naked choke. I was decently impressed with him there for showing different elements of his game. But overall, this isn't a guy that I'm really that high on, and I think that he's a guy I could see getting cut from the UFC relatively soon. The UFC still has some respect for him for taking that fight on short notice against Glover up in weight. But I think that road will end eventually. He loses this fight to Khalil Rountree, and we're talking about possibly the end of him. Khalil Rountree coming off an impressive victory over Modestas Bukauskas. That was that fight, if you guys remember. He threw that nasty little hyperextending kick, where he pushes down on the knee and the shin, and he fucked up his knee. Khalil Rountree, when he puts things together, man, he's a nasty Muay Thai fighter. One of the most impressive performances I've ever seen was his fight against Eric Anders, which it's so weird if you think about it, because Eric Anders, when he shows up, he could really be a very talented fighter. And then Khalil Rountree is the same thing. There's so many ups and downs in both those guys' careers. If Eric Anders and Rountree fought 100 times, I would love to see how that played out, even though Rountree dominated him so much. It's just weird when you think about it like that. Rountree is a guy that just, you don't know what you're getting, or you don't know what kind of Rountree you're getting when he steps in there. I mean, lost to Marcin Prachnio. The Ian Cutelaba fight, he was just absolutely spooked in that fight. He got punked out at the weigh-in. The Eric Anders fight we talked about. Before that, he got knocked out by Johnny Walker. That's something that you got to take a look into nowadays, because Johnny Walker has not been able to replicate any of those types of performances. Maybe you look at you start to look at the guys that he was doing it to. Khalil Rountree, what's his name? We just saw him fight the big Canadian guy. Big Canadian light heavyweight. It was just on the tip of my tongue. I just forgot the name, but he just got submitted by an armbar by Wellington Turman. Misha Serkinov made an absolute mental error. You just got to kind of question those performances of the opponents that were fighting Johnny Walker, because Johnny Walker's stock has crashed. Rountree, not that high on him either. So let me just cut to the chase here. But let me get to my pick here, man. I think I already talked too much about this fight. I'm gonna edge Khalil Rountree just for the fact that if he does show up, he's a guy that has good Muay Thai striking. I think that he can kind of work Robertson there. We'll see. Both these guys have identical frames, 6'1", 74 inches. So don't expect Rountree to be the way bigger fighter, even though he's known as the more natural light heavyweight fighter. But we'll see how they look at the weigh-ins and the stare downs. Another thing you need to note is that Khalil Rountree, this is a guy that's really trying to do things outside the octagon. He's really looking to make a name for himself outside the octagon. I've already seen him talking about how there's so much more to life than just fighting. I think that he's a guy that doesn't really, I don't want to say he doesn't put his all into it. It's not what I mean. he's just a guy that's kind of out there, right? He enjoys all different aspects of life. He enjoys fighting, but maybe not a guy that's just completely committed to being the best fighter. I don't know. Just a thought there. But you know what? At the end of the day, I'll take Khalil Rountree to win this fight. I think he probably is able to keep the fight standing, or these guys kind of throw down on the feet a little bit, and I'll give Khalil Rountree the edge there. Maybe he pulls off something nice, something tricky like he did in his last fight. We'll take a look at the live line here. Khalil Rountree is the slight dog, coming in at +110 with the comeback on Carl Robertson at -130. So maybe people feeling that Robertson could hold his own on the feet with his own striking, and maybe he could try to bully Rountree a little bit, maybe try to get a takedown, work something there, or just kind of mentally take over the fight, whereas we've seen Rountree be a little flaky at times. But again, we don't know what Rountree is going to show up, but if the confident, secure Rountree shows up, I think he's a little bit more talented. I'll take him to win the fight. Bruce Leroy taking on Sodiq Yusuff, taking place in the featherweight division here. Alex Caceres, Bruce Leroy. A very interesting fighter. He's 19-12 as a pro, but there's no question that he's hit a major stride in his career as of recently. He's 33 years old. He's been continuously grinding and working on his craft throughout the years, and without a doubt, he's the best version of himself. What's interesting is, I did an interview with him right after his Steven Peterson fight. Before that, he was dominated by Kron Gracie. He was submitted. He was able to take out Steven Peterson. I interviewed him right after that. And then he ended up going on a solid 4-fight winning streak. And, when I interviewed him and I had the pleasure of chatting it up with him, you can catch the full interview here on my channel if you look up MMA live discussion, whatever it is, you'll find it. You'll find it in the archives. The archives. You guys say archives or archives? Comment below that too. I gotta know this. Is it archives or archives? But anyways, Bruce Leroy was telling me that he was making major changes in his life. He was all into the spiritual type stuff and how it's been making him feel so good, this and that. And he really, really was harping on that throughout the entire interview. It was all about the spirituality and about your diet and all these things that he was working on. I find it interesting that he's really performed since that interview. I really believe that. And it's not that he just went out there and strung off another 4 fights in a row, which led him on a 5-fight winning streak. But he's had some impressive victories too, man. The Sungwoo Choi victory, that was an impressive performance there. He's had some momentum in his UFC career as of recently, and Bruce Leroy went out there and submitted him. Kevin Kroom, okay. Austin Springer, okay. Chase Hooper, he went out there and he styled on Hooper. Okay, so maybe if we're being honest, maybe it wasn't the greatest list of victories if we really want to be honest about it. Peterson's been recently showing to be a tough fighter and whatnot, but all right, if we're being honest, maybe these fights aren't as good as I was saying. But really the fight I was talking about was the Sungwoo Choi fight. That was the fight that was impressive. If he can go out there and submit Sungwoo Choi, he can go out there and try to work some magic on some very talented fighters. The problem here, though, is Sodiq Yusuff is a guy that is, first and foremost, he's a nasty striker. When I think of Sodiq Yusuff, the first thing that pops up is without a doubt his fight against Mike Davis on Dana White's Contender Series, where he came into that fight as an underdog, and Mike Davis was extremely hyped up even back then. Another guy I had the pleasure of chatting up with, Mike Davis. Mike Davis has been running through guys. I was going to say, I don't know why he's not so active and why he's not really making a run right now, but I actually do know because I've chatted up with him. And if I'm being honest, he's a little out there. He's just talking about how he can't lay off cereal and he eats all these Cinnamon Toast Crunch and all this and that. And somehow he's still in phenomenal shape. But he's a guy, he even told me when I talked to him, I was like, oh, when you getting back in there? Come to think of it, I just want to say this real quick. He actually said, I'm not fighting anytime soon. He's like, I'm not really looking to fight. So he's a guy he's a little out there because he's a guy that has so much talent. But anyways, Sodiq Yusuff took him out in that fight. He was throwing beautiful leg kicks. That was a big time performance. To go out there and take out Mike Davis there, that was a big time performance. He got the contract. He's been wreaking havoc in the UFC for a while now. We could run through his resume real quick. He's 11-2 as a pro, 28 years old. After he took out Mike Davis, took out Suman Mokhtarian, I'm not really worried about that. Shaman Moraes, talented fighter. Gabriel Benitez knocked him out. Andre Feely was without a doubt his biggest victory. And then he drops the ball against Arnold Allen. Arnold Allen is a very complete fighter. He's a tough fighter to take out. 16-1 as a pro. And now he's versus Alex Caceres. I mean, I think that Sodiq Yusuff should be able to avoid any of those tricky grappling exchanges where Bruce Leroy's hanging on his back going for a rear naked choke. I think that Sodiq is decently well-rounded with his grappling defense and whatnot. He knows how to stay on his feet. He knows how to make people pay when they're coming in trying to close the distance. I could see him landing some big shots on Caceres here on the feet. Caceres will have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He's an inch taller. He's a little bit more of the lengthy fighter, but I think Sodiq Yusuff can really chop him down with the leg kicks and throw some big-time power punches on the feet. My pick is going to be Sodiq Yusuff to win this fight, but I want to point something out. We take a look at the live line. I'm not really necessarily sure I feel confident in Sodiq at minus 275 betting line. I think that's a little bit of a high line. Caceres with over a 2-1 favorite on some books, plus 210. I find that decently interesting. But at the end of the day, my pick will be Sodiq Yusuff. I think that the power shots and the physicality of him will be a little bit much for Leroy. I don't think Leroy will be able to work the wizardry with his grappling and just his funky type of style. But remember now, Bruce Leroy has been revolutionizing his career with his striking, all that. So he's been very funky on the feet too, giving guys problems there too. I'm interested in that fight. I'm excited for that fight. The more I start breaking down this card, maybe I'm bumping this card up to a B minus or a C plus. Or maybe a C. I said C minus. Maybe a C or a C plus. I'm digging this card a little bit. Marlon Moraes taking on Yadong Song. Man, Marlon Moraes. This was a guy that he was at the tippy top of the mountain. He was right there, and everything just fell out from under him. You guys know the fight I'm talking about. I'm talking about that Henry Cejudo fight where he had an amazing first round, was chopping Cejudo's legs down, and then eventually he just broke down, and Cejudo took over that fight and obviously just devastatingly finished him in that fight. And then you know what, he bounced back with a split decision victory over Jose Aldo. I thought that he lost that fight, to be quite honest, so I really think we should be talking about Moraes being on a 5-fight losing streak, which is crazy. But you know what, the worst part about it was when he lost that fight to Henry Cejudo, I really feel that he lost a little bit of his chin and his durability. We saw Sandhagen finish him with that nasty wheel kick. Rob Font knocks him out. Merab Dvalishvili finishes him with the ground and pound, brutalizes him in that fight as well. Honestly, when we talk about this fight here, is he going to be able to hold up against Yadong Song in this fight? Yadong Song is an excellent striker. He's very durable. Yadong Song's only 24 years old, even though he has 25 professional fights. So let's remember that now. He's only 24 years old. He is without a doubt the future of Chinese mixed martial arts. I mean, he's the guy that's going to be holding the flag up for a long time to come. He's a superior talent in the division. I've been very impressed with him. He had a loss to Kyler Phillips. It was a very close fight. Bounced back with 2 victories. Took out Casey Kenny. I call him Casey Kenny. It's just my thing. So don't hate on it. Knocks out Julio Arce, and in his last fight, Julio Arce is a very talented boxer, and took out Marlon Chito Vera. That was a fight that people thought Marlon won. Let me be clear on that. A lot of people thought Marlon Chito Vera won that fight as well. So when we talk about a couple of these fights, some tricky judging there. The majority decision draw. I think they had this as a draw over Cody Stamen. Anyways, just keep in mind that all this stuff here, I mean, we're talking about Yadong Song when he was 22 years old and he was still putting in work. He's only getting better and better, coming off his most impressive performance. I just see Yadong Song being the more durable fighter here. Has a 1/2-inch reach advantage, 2 inches taller, nothing really going on there. I just think when these guys dig down in the sand and start throwing down, I think that Yadong Song is going to be way more durable. His striking is extremely accurate. Like I said, the sky is well, as I like to say, the sky is not the limit for him. He can go way past the sky, up towards the stars, and continue to go on and on and on. He's just a very talented fighter. He's very well-rounded. He's working on his takedown defense, all that. He's been looking very, very clean with his takedown defense and his grappling. You see him working all types of strikes here, the knees, the kicks. He's a dangerous fighter, man. I think you guys obviously know where I'm going with this. I'm definitely picking Yadong Song to win this fight. The only X factor being We see Marlon Moraes putting in work over at Tiger Muay Thai. We already know that he's an extremely dangerous striker. I mean, remember his knockout over Aljamain Sterling. There's no question he still has that type of potential. If we see any type of regression in Yadong Song's game, where he puts on a performance like he did against Marlon Chito Vera, maybe Marlon, if he's able to hang, if he's durable enough, all of a sudden he could make this a very close fight, and it could be a fight that goes his way. I would not bank on that, though, man. I think that these guys are going to be throwing some big shots, especially for the fact that Marlon Moraes does not shy from wars. He goes in there and he's looking to take your head off, and it exposes him to be hit as well. And he's just not the same fighter. The damage that he's taken throughout the years, it's taken a toll on him. Cuts a lot of weight. Maybe that's something that's an issue, too. Always comes in phenomenal shape. He's jacked up. He's big for the division. As far as carrying muscle and whatnot, he's... maybe that's been taking a toll on him. I'm not sure. Maybe he would help him if he bumped up in weight. I don't know about that. I'm kind of just throwing that out there. I would need to look further into that, but I just think that Yadong Song is going to be way more durable. And again, the more I think about it, probably not with his frame at 5'6" and 66 and a half inch reach. He probably does not want to be in the featherweight division, but maybe he can just cut down on the weightlifting, and maybe he could see if it helps his weight cut and whatnot. I think Yadong Song will be too much for him. We'll take a look at the betting line here. Yadong Song is right around a -250 up to that -275 range. We're talking about a big time favorite here. I would like to tell you maybe there's some value on Moraes' dog, but I'd rather steer you away from not touching that at all. But if Moraes pulls off some magic, hence the name, maybe all of a sudden we see him pulling out some old tools out of his toolbox from back in the day. But I would not bank on that. And my pick is Yadong Song. That takes us to the main event here. Thiago Maheta Santos taking on Magomed Ankalaev. First thing I got to say when we talk about Ankalaev, I've been telling you guys that he is a future champion for a long time. I stand by it. 16-1 as a pro. His one loss, one of the most frustrating losses I've ever seen in all of MMA, was dominating for about 14 minutes and 50 seconds before being caught in that submission by Paul Craig. We now know that Paul Craig is a very, very dangerous submission artist, but still, you would have liked Magomed to not tap, maybe go out on his shield, or maybe because he could have probably hung on for another second, would have got the victory. I didn't like to see that from him. But from a talent standpoint, we are talking about a guy that is as talented as it gets. I truly believe that he's going to wreak havoc in this division and start to go on his way to whole gold. I truly believe that. We look at the top of the division right here. Glover Teixeira's up there in age. He's been looking good, but Ankalaev is stuffing those takedowns. He's not letting him work that craftiness down on the mat that he's been doing on guys, wearing them out and working them down there. Ankalaev is so polished up with his sambo and all that. Jan Blachowicz has had a very disappointing performance. I don't think you could really say he's taken out Magomed Ankalaev. Maybe Yuri. We'll see how Yuri performs against Glover. Stylistically, it's a little bit of a different fight for Yuri against Glover than Ankalaev. I think Ankalaev matches up better against Glover, whereas maybe Teixeira can exploit all that wildness from Yuri, where I'll give you guys a little sneak peek, but maybe, Yuri throwing the kitchen sink out there, gasses himself a little bit, and Glover takes advantage of it. We've seen him do that. Rakic is a guy I'm very high on, but at the end of the day, I think that Ankalaev takes all these guys out, and you're getting a sneak peek right now. I think Ankalaev obviously takes out Thiago Santos. Newsflash. Santos, a very dangerous fighter as well, but Ankalaev is just so complete. When I look at how these guys are going to match up here, I favor Ankalaev in the feet. He's so technical. He's so cerebral. He's so defensive on the feet. He's dangerous. We talked about the front kick to Lengambula earlier. That front kick was devastating. He's diverse with his striking. He's just the truth, man. He's the truth. 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. It's a nice frame for the division. He's a guy that he's not the biggest of guys for the division, even though it's a very solid frame, but he's a guy that can go. Shout out to Cain Velasquez, a guy that was not the biggest guy in his division, but could go. So sad about that whole situation. But, we'll talk about that on our closing thoughts. But this is Ankalaev's fight. Barring he doesn't get caught or clipped with the big shot from Santos, who does have that kind of power. There's no question about it. I just think that Magomed will avoid that and just dominate here. Santos lost to John Jones, was a split decision loss. He lost that fight, but he performed well, tore his knee and still fought hard. Submitted by Glover Teixeira. That was really the start of Teixeira doing all that work. Santos landed some big shots in that fight, remember. Wasn't able to put Teixeira away. Can he pull some of those big shots out of his back pocket, try to crack Magomed with a big shot, maybe get a finish? The loss to Alexander Rakic. You know, I already said that I believe that Rakic is one of the dark horses in the division as well. So I'll say this much. I think that as high as I am on Magomed Ankalaev, this is still the light heavyweight division, and a guy and Thiago Santos has the power to put anybody out. There's no question about that. We've seen him knock out guys from years, throughout the years, and there's definitely that type of potential. And but that being said, again, I think Ankalaev is too defensive, too cerebral. I think he can go to the takedowns, he can get on top. I think that there's a chance Santos gasses out a little bit in the middle or later rounds, and Ankalaev really makes him pay. And I'm all over Ankalaev to win this fight. From a betting standpoint, though, not really crazy about a line like this in this division, like I said, but he gets the job done. Maybe you want to parlay him there. And just understand that we're watching a future champion here. And I think Ankalaev, I take Ankalaev over any light heavyweight in the world, including John Jones. I think he works John Jones. I think he works everybody in the division. So I think that you guys will all see that right here in the near future. So that is my pick, Magomed Ankalaev, to win the fight there in the main event. So before we get into our closing thoughts, I got to hit you up with the fun fact here. I think I found a good one. Fact, Johnny Appleseed's fruits were not for eating. Yes, there was a real John Chapman who planted thousands of apple trees on U.S. soil, but the apples on those trees were much more bitter than the ones you'd find in the supermarket today. Johnny Appleseed didn't expect his fruits to be eaten whole, but rather made into hard apple cider. So it's kind of funny if you think about this. I thought this was pretty cool. You know, we all celebrate Johnny Appleseed when we're in kindergarten. You know, we talk about how he was spreading apple trees everywhere for people to eat apples and whatnot. But really, he was just trying to get people to get crunk and get on the apple cider. Now, apple cider is not my thing. And if you drink apple cider, you know, let me not say, because there's probably a couple of you guys that drink apple cider. You guys are all right with me, but you won't catch me drinking apple cider. I had a roommate in college that used to stock up the fridge with apple cider for a couple months, a random one, and he was a funny dude. But you know, when I would try to sneak some drinks, you know how it is in the college days, just snagging people's beers, he would have those apple ciders, and I think it was a little bit of a defense mechanism, so so I wouldn't drink them, you know, because they're not really my cup of tea, and I ain't getting drunk off apple cider, because if you do that, you're probably gonna have the worst hangover you ever had in your life. But comment below, are you drinking apple cider? Are you going out there and buying apple cider and drinking it and getting drunk off that for the fights? Please let me know. All right. And then with that, I want to transition to some more serious closing thoughts. You guys all already heard the situation that happened recently with Cain Velasquez. There's been a lot more details that have came out recently. I just want to say, you know, we try to throw deep messages out here and there when we close these shows out. I mean, which better message to say than, you know, make sure if you have children, you're watching your children. You're not letting random people around your kids like that. I understand it's tough, and sometimes some of you guys work, you and your wife work, and you got to bring your kids somewhere. You don't have a family member to watch them, even sometimes with family members, whatever. But you got to be careful there too, man. You always just got to keep an eye on your kids. But you know, Cain Velasquez was dropping his kid off to this lady's house. She had like a big mansion, and she had all her kids being watched there. And all these random kids were being watched there, and supposedly Cain Velasquez really helped her fund the whole place and everything, and really helped out. And meanwhile, her son was living in this mansion, and he was molesting the kids. It's disgusting. Obviously, you know, Cain, he tried to take the guy out. I'll say this much: I think that Cain made a mistake there. I admire the fact that he was willing to go in there and try to do what he did, but I think he went about it completely wrong. First off, he's chasing them down in the middle of traffic. He's shooting at him. He's missing him. He's shooting the stepdad. And there was some weird stories too. Like he was swapping clips without even emptying the entire clip. I just don't understand why he went about it that way. I don't know why he didn't just wait until there was a better time, if you catch my drift. And you know, you don't have to rush things. You could be a little bit more cerebral and a little bit more slick about how you do things, and he had a lot more options than that. And now he's not even there to hold his relative, or some people speculated it's his daughter or whoever it is, his niece, but he's not even there to help, you know, to give his condolences and to hold his relative and to give them support. And now he may be facing a long time in prison. So I think that Cain really kind of dropped the ball here, in my opinion. Like I said, I think I'm completely down with what he was trying to do. Just, you got to do it the right way, if you catch my drift. All right, guys? I think you understand what I'm trying to say here. You got to do it. There's a way better way you do that. Or even if you don't want to do that, there's another way. You know, you then just beat the brakes off him. I mean, you're talking about, you're one of the most deadly fighters in the world. You know, you could do that. You could even do that if you want to just do that and just catch him. But again, who am I to really speak on it? I mean, I wasn't in his shoes and going through the pain that he was going through, and he probably just exploded and he had to get him that second. But I think that he should have tried to cool down there and plot better. But just the message I want to say is, make sure that, man, you're watching your kids, and if you're bringing them to these random places like this, at least nowadays, man, with technology, they have cameras in these places. Bring your kids to like a more commercial type place where the cameras are all over and you can watch your kids, man, rather than some random lady in her house like that. You got to be on top of stuff. It's really sad. And I don't even understand why Cain, I don't understand his situation, man, because Cain's a guy that has a lot of money. I know he's pretty much rich. He's not fighting. I don't know why he's not, if he's working at the gym or whatever he's doing, why isn't his wife or a relative watching the kids? Why are you dropping them off like that? I mean, are you really working? Are you working like that? I don't know. So, you know what I mean? You see people prioritize money so much, they're not even there to protect and watch their kids. If you're already filthy rich, get a decent house and settle down. What are you putting your kid in a place like that? I don't know. I feel really bad for Cain Velasquez, and shout out to Cain. I hope he gets out immediately. So sad, right? The guy that did the heinous crime is out in the streets with bail, and Cain is denied bail. I think that's ridiculous, and that's the society we live into today. That's the society we live in today. So it's unfortunate, and I just want to close you guys out with those thoughts, man. So be careful, and it's always better to be more paranoid and more crazy than to have that lax type of mentality. At least if you're paranoid, you can prevent yourself from going through a lot of those situations. That's how I feel about things. So shout out to Cain Velasquez. Let him get out. Free the man. Let him get out ASAP. All right. So we'll close things off saying that. You guys will catch up with me all throughout the week on Instagram, and Saturday night for sure. We'll be watching the fights. Catch me on Instagram, MMA Fortune Teller _ Twitter, the MMA Teller. Hit that like button on the way out. I appreciate all you guys. I'm filming this late, man. It's 1:30 a.m. The eyes are getting a little slanted here. The voice is getting coarse. I appreciate you guys, man. Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This is the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.